Good morning and welcome to the Capital Gang. I am Oscar Semoyamsoke, and as Moses Kaole of a morning show with a bevy of topics. The topic really is one, the main one, and it is Kawempe. In the studio, I have Mr. Hakim Wampamba. You're most welcome to the Capital Gang for the first time.
I'm humbled to be here. Many thanks for having me. Such I grew up listening to. I think I'm
Are you saying we are old?
I didn't say that. You said that. But yeah, glad to be here.
Okay. Then we have Derek Kwandera. He's also in the studio. You're most welcome to the gang, Derek.
Thank you, Oscar. I think you're old.
Yeah. I am old, yeah.
Always a great pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Then I have Agather at AA. You're most welcome to the gang.
Thank you, Oscar.
But why is Agatha? Agatha doesn't look good on OO's chair, like, to be honest.
Well, I don't mind when it comes. I'll hand it over. But we are warming up for the chair. This is symbolic.
So far we have journalists in the studio and one journalist lawyer. I'm expecting Honorable Abdu Katuntu and Honorable Lydia Wanyoto as well. They must be on their way. Kawempe by-election. So, Hakim, what happened on the day?
They just felt like a movie. Well, we were assigned to cover the Kawempe North by-election, and of course we were doing a couple of stories in the run-up to the main day, 13th of March. I cannot say much about the depth and breadth of the stories that we were able to do in the run-up. So the final day comes. I was assigned along with my video journalist, who also is a veteran videographer. We proceeded to Kawempe North, and many of our other teams were also deployed in other different locations because you have an election in which you have 10 candidates. So we particularly was assigned to cover Sadat Muchibi, who is the FDC candidate. He was supposed to vote from Matero, and that is in Kazolo Goba, a polling station that doesn't have so many people, about 964 voters. So we went there and did our very first link on NBS television. We could later do another for Sanyuka TV in the same location. We waited for Sadat Muchibi, but in vain, because he didn't show up. Up to that time, he didn't show up at that particular polling station. We tried to ask the election officials to tell us whether he is on that register, and they told us he isn't there. So Dora Tonjeire, who is also part of our editorial team, told us that, you see, there is another polling station, Kazo Angola, the Etokak polling station, a big polling station with about 2,000 voters. So he said, I think there are things happening here and that we need to document them. So if he hasn't come to this side, because there are many things that are happening and we need to show these things to the world. So I proceeded along with Hassan Waswa to that particular polling station. When we reached, a few moments, we could see Kayemba Solo being brutally arrested and thrown into a drone. But before he could go, he said, Waswa, get hold of my phone. So he threw the phones in the air. So while Waswa was trying to film that sequence and scamp around for the phones, that is the point at which they descended on him and gave him very heavy slaps on his head. So now Waswa has a bowed head and it was shining. So he received the heavy slap, and then this particular security operative, who wasn't, by the way, on uniform, but was having a mask and a cap on and glasses, was able to, he wanted to actually beat the camera, but Waswa put it away, so he handed it over peacefully. So he took the camera and took the live unit as well. So we remained there. In that same fracas, Hasifa Namvoma of Spark TV, a nation media company, was also beaten and had her camera lens shattered. So she could run away and hide in a toilet. That is where she provided the link via phone back to studio at Spark TV. Josephine Nachibule was in studio for them. So we remained around, of course, in fear. People were lining up and they continued voting, and they said these security operatives were not beating up any of those voters. While we were still there, they returned for the second time. At this point, I told Hassan Waswa, let's take off our press jackets. Let us not be identified as journalists. So we kept there for a few more moments. They returned and beat up. They were beating up this other journalist that was filming. I don't remember her name. She was filming that sequence, so she was beaten up. So while this EC staff saw this happen, she came and said, why are you beating that journalist up? She was also beaten. I actually dared to ask her name. She didn't tell me her name. She said, no, for my own safety and for the safety of my job, I will not tell you my name. But she was beaten, an election official staff or an EC staff. So we kept there. Then the team from Nation Media and our very own joined us. Isano Francis joined us. Abubeka Lubowa joined us. Raymond Tamale joined us. David Ijo of NTV joined us. Assault TV team also joined us. So we kept there for a few more moments. But when they arrived, I told them, guys, this is a very unsafe place for us, so we need not to film everything as we should, but let us just ensure that we are safe. So we kept in a group and we were all branded. At that point, I had put back my press jacket on. So at that very point, they returned. They were moving in a numberless drone. It did not have a plate number. They returned, and when I saw them from a distance, remember there is that steep slope, so this place is in a valley, so we saw them coming, and I told them, guys, those people are here for us. We can either run away or remove the branding of our source. They said, no, we are remaining in one click. So I ran away and went to the polling station that was in just about 2 to 3 meters from where we were. I removed off my press jacket. So they came, and then they requested them to hand over the cameras. Isano, Abubeka Lubowa, Dennis Kawugov, NTV, they all handed over the cameras. And while they were handing over the cameras, they started being beaten. I could see them fall to the ground, particularly Hassan Waswa, David Ijo, Francis Isano, Abubeka Lubowa, as the others were struggling to run away. All that happened right in front of my watchful eye, and I couldn't do so much because at this particular point I knew that they were here for us. At that point, they didn't beat up any of the citizens that had come to vote. So I saw some being actually taken into the drone to follow Kayemba Solo, who had already been taken, to follow Matthias Walukaga, who had also been taken, to follow the Mutebi, the mayor of Chira, who had also been taken into the same drone. So I remained around. Then the people that had come to vote told me to go and shelter at a nearby shop. I kept in there for a few moments. Then that's the point at which our team back at station said, we are evacuating all of you. So Salongo Ismail Sembatia was giving me a call and saying, where are you? I need to pick you up. At that point, I left the shop, came to its veranda and sat on a bench. At this point, I had removed everything that I had that could identify me as a journalist. The ID, I had kept it into my pockets. I had removed off my suspenders and the tie. I was just there with my phone waiting if Salongo would come and pick me up. At that very point...
And he did?
He didn't. At that very point, there is this particular police personnel. He had a name, Ampade, that looked at me and gave me this suspicious look. When I looked back where he wasn't there. So he proceeded at a corner of the very shop that I was, at that very building. He continued inside, and that is where the security operatives came on uniform, and they said, oh, Hakimu Wampamba. So they started beating me on my back as they tried to slap my head. Maybe I could fall to the ground. I did not. I ensured that I ran as fast as I could onto a speeding border, and then they tried to chase me with that numberless drone, and then they couldn't find us. At that steep slope is where they lost me. So we proceeded to Waise. I rushed back to station, and I could learn that Isano had been hospitalized and he was unconscious at that point. I learned that Abubakar Luvowa, Dennis Kabugo, Raymond Tamale were at that point missing because they could later on be found like at about 7 p.m. At around that particular time.
For the
that is what happened.
Of the listeners, what's your media house?
I work with NBS Television as a current affairs reporter, but particularly with the bit of business, and I've done that for quite a time.
So these people that eventually found you actually knew you?
Yeah, they knew me by name, and I could get this by tales of many other journalists. Jamida Mulindwa Noaha, who is also a colleague, they came looking for her. So it's so sad that they know the names, but they do not know the faces. All right. So they actually asked her camera person, they asked Makumbi, Joseph, do you know where Jamila Mulindwa Noaha is? And she was just seated right by his left side and said, no, she has left already. So they knew our names. So they came particularly for us. They also didn't know me. I always put on suspenders as a signature look. I had taken them off.
You have them now, yes.
Yeah. So I had taken them off. So they came knowing us by name, maybe not by face, and they came for us and they beat us the way they wanted.
Derek Wanda, I should welcome Lydia is in the studio. If you're hearing any noises, Star Cafe is serving breakfast. You're most welcome to the gang, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto.
Thank you, Oscar, and to our listeners and viewers, good morning. Habari za asubuhi. I bring you greetings from Mbale City. Yesterday we were receiving a new facility in town, our neighbors. The Wazalendo Circle was being launched in the city, so we have a new community in our city. To the people in the gang, good morning, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Derek Wanda, clearly journalists were targeted.
Yeah, on that day, I was doing more or less a gatekeeping role in the newsroom. So the people that had been...
this is
Daily Monitor.
Daily Monitor newsroom.
Yeah. So the people that had been deployed to the field were sending information, and I was doing the compilation from the desk, and also receiving some stories and writing some of them. But until up to some point, we the management took a decision to withdraw all the reporters from the field. A call I feel was very much delayed, because they called them out at around midday. Yeah, but I think when they recalled them from the field was about midday. You think it was much earlier? Later? Yeah.
The Abubakars disappeared at around...
Move to the microphone, Agatha.
The Abus disappeared at around 1:30, and the recall came after they had...
Yeah,
so... It would have been 2 p.m. or 1:30 there.
Yeah, thereabout. So I felt maybe it was a tough decision, because there was a lot of consultation within, and I felt it should have come even much earlier than that, because from the onset in the morning, the journalists that touched base in very early in the morning could tell stories, could send you a message and tell you, hey, we don't know why we are being looked at in a very suspicious way. One of our reporters, Andrew Vagara, who arrived at a tally center in the morning before he went to any of the polling stations. And Andrew Vagara has covered security and police and crime for a very long time. So he is a very identifiable person within the circles of security. So they came to the car where he was being transported, and they all assembled at the car, looking at him like with their very mean eyes. And lucky for him, he didn't open. but also I'm very sure he couldn't tell why they were looking at him in that manner. So he drove away, and the driver, instead of taking him to the next polling station, just drove him back to office. So he said he would go to the tally center, maybe at around 4. So when he was still traveling, the news of attacking journalists started trickling in. But yes, incidentally and unfortunately, there was a very intentional decision by the security to look for and hunt down all journalists who are in the field. And it's not surprising that many of them were clobbered and were injured. Some of them whisked away and held incommunicado for several hours. But again, you could tell the sequence from the time we started covering the campaigns. Journalists, many of them were bedridden. Many of them were in hospitals, hospitalized, and many of them had even asked for leave because they were nursing wounds at their home or wherever. So this entire campaign looks much like there was a big target. There was an intention to target the fourth estate. An incident that I feel and can confirm to you that very unfortunate. So in such instances, one wonders why and when a journalist can be safe. Because in our training as journalists in school, they tell you if there is a riot or fracas, and Lydia has always advised that their government will always look at the labeling that we have, press. And if you have the labelings, you have the paraphernalia, you have the identification and stuff like that, that is the only thing that will save you. And fortunately for us during this campaign, the labelings and the identification was to our peril, was to our disadvantage. That if you wore it, then it was even a bigger reason for them to target you. So we don't know in the coming election whether we should wear them or just go as undercover journalists. Now, for us, some of us who are easily identified because we've been on TV and whatever, and they are Kim Wampambas, I don't know what we're going to do because our faces can already sell us.
Agatha, actually, I saw you running posters on the day of abducted people. Was it not too sensational?
What do you mean too sensational? As running posters of people that are missing?
Yes, he was just saying, this one has been arrested, this one is missing, this one's missing.
I think I have seen from the time of the March to Parliament protests that those posters are effective. That the posters are effective in sort of rallying support and putting pressure. So I am called at around, I think, 1:30 and told about. Of course, we had been seeing. I think from mainly. Abductions has entered and is disrupting everyone. So that's why. So anyway, I was saying that we had been seeing, following the tweets from journalists that were on the ground, especially Kanari Mugume, that the situation was tense. So that's around, I think, 1, we learn about the beatings, the disappearances, and now we are.
I heard Kanari Mugume speaking Luganda.
Oh,
for the first time.
Not for the first time.
Really?
So at this point, we're more concerned about those missing. Now, when they are missing, you don't know you don't know what to expect.
But there's a definition of missing. You're a lawyer, you know missing.
No,
unless you can say for sure abducted.
I know you can only be declared missing after 24 hours. But in that moment, you don't know where these people are. They have been abducted and taken in drones. Right. They are not at any police station. You don't know anywhere that they are. So they haven't been officially declared, but for you can't account for where they are right now. Not their newsrooms, not their loved ones, not the people that were with them. So we make calls. Actually, they had also thought that Hakim was also had been taken. Now, from his narration here, it's understandable that he had taken cover and people had thought he was taken. Then Isano. So we make calls at NBS, and that's when we are told Isano is in the hospital. Hakim was already back at the station. So at that moment, the only journalists that were unaccounted for were 3. Raymond Tamale, Dennis Kabgo, and Abeka Luboa. So I first put their photos.
Are they from the same media house?
From Nation Media Group.
Okay.
So 2 are from NTV, and Abeka Luboa is a photographer for Monitor, and he's always at the front line from maybe 2016 elections, if not 2011 actually. So he's always there. Now, and for me, so I make posters for people I don't even know, but this is Abeka. I've known him, worked with him for a long time. These are journalists that you have seen. So we start to panic, and especially from what also Derek confirms, the panic was especially because this was deliberate. It was premeditated, it was deliberate, they were targeted. In other previous incidents where journalists have been beaten, you could think it's in the line of duty. Like when they were beaten in 2021 as Chagulanyi took a petition to the Human Rights Office here in Kololo. So it wasn't that, no, we want to beat up journalists, it was that they are beating up everyone. This time, they were beating up journalists because I am glad Hakim learned that and took off the press, whatever. You know, even in war zones, journalists go with press tags to get that protection as journalists. So now this was the worry. That 1, it was deliberate, but 2, the targeting of Nation Media journalists has always been there. Derek was the victim in the 2021 elections. I think many people were shocked about the Hakim Wampambas of this world being beaten and Isano, and so because they thought NBS journalists are not immune. So we start looking, we start running those flyers, and we are told at around 5:30 that they were dropped at some police station, but beaten up to now. They struggle to walk. I haven't been to see Isano, but I called him yesterday and someone picked and said he can't talk up to now. He can't eat. They just have to try and feed him with the soup, and because someone strangled him. But for me, I think the biggest lesson is that journalists shouldn't think they are immune to impunity. We shouldn't think we are unique. I said that in 2021 after that incident. I was invited on a talk show like this, and there was this outrage, press freedom, why are they beating up journalists? And I said, guys, we should ask a question, why are they beating citizens? Because they are not going to beat others. And
Abdul Katunta has been saying that for a while.
I told them that, and this time I saw someone saying, why are you beating journalists? What wrong has the media done? I said, dude, what wrong did Narukola do to offer himself to stand? What wrong did his supporters do to go and
support him?
Yeah, so and I said, because we had put on those flyers, journalism is not a crime. And then I thought, no, this is a wrong hashtag. Journalism is not a crime, but neither is running for political office. Neither is assembling and supporting your person. So we should know that and I know that it's more dangerous that way, because if you make sure journalists are not in those places to cover, to show what is happening, the world will not know. Ugandans will not know. But maybe it's high time we learned that in a dead system, in a system that will come and beat up people and leave them crippled, because I wanted us to start with the nomination day of that election. People were beaten up so badly, including the candidate of NUP. When others were being nominated, the NRM person, there was nothing. No one was bothered. No one was bothered to even move in a procession with their candidates. We go to the first day of the campaigns. I will never get out of my head those images of that day. They beat up people. They take them in drones the way they took the Abductions, and for a long time no one knows where they are. But one of them is lucky to have a phone in that drone and keeps taking videos and sending them. At some point, he takes a video where one of the girls that had been beaten so badly is suffocating in the drone, faints. So on Twitter, everyone starts saying, Nabosa is dead, Nabosa is dead. And I'm saying, she's dead from where? Can we at least find out where she is, So at that moment, I am told by people, when I'm asking on Twitter, I am told that Nabosa is at Wandegea police station. It's like 9 in the night, and I go to Wandegea police station. I think I was driving there because I was calling these guys of NUP. Do you know where this person is that they are saying is dead? Do you know where they have been taken? So their Secretary General calls me. I was past Cafe Javazia and says, there's no need to go there because they will not allow you to see them. Our people were there and they didn't allow you to see them. I said, I'm already on the way anyway, but also I want to confirm whether Nabosa is there, whether she's alive, because everyone is saying she's dead. So I get to the police station. True, they refuse to give us access. I'd gone with Godwin Toko and a young activist, Kenneth Makana. They refused to give us access. I talked to like 4 of them because one would say, go and talk to my boss, go and talk to this. And they all refuse, but they insist, even show us in a book of admitting people. Is that also called admitting at a police station or whatever? And Nabosa is there. And I show them a video of someone beaten up to the point of fainting. I say, is it normal for you that a person in this state is spending the night in a police cell and not a hospital? Yet Nabosa, by the way, wasn't the one who was badly off. There was Olivia Katende, there was that Ronald Mayoga. They were all bleeding, but they were spending the night in a police cell. And I was told, we gave them painkillers. This is for someone who had even become unconscious. I think the biggest shock came the next day. The next morning, I went back to the police station. But at least I came home at 11 and confirmed that she was not dead, at least. The next day, they are taken to a magistrate's court in Kawempe, I think. They were all limping. Some were being carried. The judicial officer remanded them. Remanded people who could not move, who could not stand. They are taken to jail.
On what case?
It was nuisance? Public nuisance on the roads or something like that. The same charge I was put on when I was arrested. So they are taken to jail. But Oscar, I'd like to also say that the law even demands that judicial officers don't continue with the trial of a tortured person. Acquit them. So these are people, first they are beaten for no reason, no crime. Then they are not treated. They are sent to jail. I think this was Tuesday. On Thursday, I go to the prison to see them. One had fainted twice, had been taken to Matson Bay because the Luzira Women Health Center couldn't manage that situation. If you saw how they looked like. They come to court on Friday. They are still being supported.
Friday yesterday?
No.
Oh,
Friday
the other time.
Yes. That week. They are still being supported. That Olivia Katende faints again in court. They carry her out and take her back to jail. So all these things, when you see them, you don't think that this is a system that will now not harm you or kill you because you are a journalist. You don't come and be shocked, oh my God, they are beating journalists. No, they have been beating everyone. It's been a pattern. It's been a trend. One election after the other.
So this time round, why are they beating journalists?
So I think the reason now they are targeting them is because journalists have been showing how they are beating Ugandans. No, I mean now he's asking why were they targeting them? Because on that polling day they were not beating citizens randomly. So so for me it's that the earlier you learn that you will be beaten, all of you will be beaten, whether you are from a group from New Vision, which is owned by government, whether you are from NBS, which is friendly to government, whether you are a journalist, a lawyer. And this, I say all the time, that every time we wait for our turn, when they picked Aaron Chiza from a courtroom and sent him to jail, there was this meeting where people were saying, "Oh, Aaron is my friend. I am so enraged." I said, guys, you should be enraged when they take Olivia Lutaya, even if you, because that means they will come for you. No one cares. Yeah.
Be enraged.
Yeah. So.
Oscar, one thing it just brings back the memory that this is not an isolated case. By the way, there was a time we were all abducted during the 2021 elections. We were cordoned off in an area. There is that swamp, that rice scheme in Lira, when you are crossing to Amolatar. I forget the name. So the security blocked Bobby Wine and his supporters, put a truck in front of them and another behind them. Then there was, as we were following the journalists, we were also put in our own area, and for more than 8 hours, we were not allowed. Journalists, we were not allowed to move, go anywhere. Just as the politicians, because you would think, no, that is they are doing their political whatever. For us journalists, we are free to move and go wherever we want. We were not allowed. In fact, that day we were badly beaten. The John Cliff Wamalas were beaten on that day. The Abubakar Roas were beaten. Everyone was beaten. Ali Mivule, and so at that time is when it dawned on me that we are not any different. We are not special as journalists. We are just part of the entire disturbed generation of Uganda.
I think, Lydia.
I think, if you may, later on, I think I'll have to handle that.
Why journalists?
I will, if you let me, because I do not know the rules here. Because I think that I don't want us to go back that route of all lives matter, Black Lives Matter, right? I don't want to toe that line of, okay, if we are saying all rights matter, and then why are we only prioritizing journalists' rights? I do believe that the first victim of a conflict, or be it a war, is the truth. And why do journalists' rights matter now more than ever before is that you do not want the truth to die with them. All right, so you certainly want to cast and shine a special light on the journalists' rights because you do not want the truth to go down the drain. In as much as all the other rights matter, I do believe that journalists are Ugandans first before they get the trade. But I do think that in situations that are this that are this precarious, you want to uphold the truth and you still want someone to tell that story.
I hear you. Well, have you been traumatized by all these events? You know, when Abdu came in, he came in running and says, "Where's Hakim Wampamba?" I saw you know.
Truth to be told, I usually don't want to tell personal stories, and this is the same thing that I usually tell. That the one thing that the media, particularly here in Uganda, has been consistent with is consistency with not telling our own stories. We would rather tell stories of people that have been beaten. We would rather tell stories of people whose rights have been abused grossly, but we never get time to tell our own stories. I will not tell you the excruciating pain that my young wife has gone through, having to look at me cry live on air. I do not want to tell you the psychological torture that my father has gone through, having to look at me cry live on air. At some particular point, I told people, ensure my family doesn't get to know about this. But they knew, and they've all been concerned. Truth to be told, we don't tell our own stories, and when we get to tell them, people get to jump on us and say, wait, you think you're any different from any other Ugandan that has been beaten. So I think we don't want to toe that line.
I hear you. I'll come back to you a little bit later, to all the journalists here. Most welcome to Gang, Honorable Abdu Katonto. We are under siege by the Gen Z. We've allowed them talking rights. Lydia and I have just been looking at them.
They are advising us not to toss a particular line.
So, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, this was a small election. The result was kind of predictable. Really, what was that all about?
What was it all about?
I mean, the beatings and so
I
on.
was.
It was supposed to be a small election. Is that how I should put it?
I participated to support the NRM candidate in Kawempe. I was there personally. I was assigned to manage Mperere. I was in Mperere parish. The moment I got there, I found some supporters, also leaders who support other candidates. I met their honorable. I was with Honorable Namuga, Honorable Shabe, the mayor of Machinje is called the Muryanyama, about 6 or 7 members of parliament. And I said, let's provide leadership in our parish. And I can speak without any form of contradiction that there was no incident in Imperere, but there were journalists in Imperere. There was security in Imperere. I really wish that all other people, because me, I was in Imperere. I wish that all, if your colleagues who covered Imperere can bear you witness, they can send you a message and say whether they were beaten or were harassed in Imperere. Let me just finish. Because me, I want to be specific. If you begin to talk about generality things, we are going to end up in problems. It's a leadership issue. Because if you go to Imperere, no journalist was beaten. If you go to Imperere, none of our supporters fought. If you go to Imperere, we had leaders there at all levels. It was as competitive as anywhere else.
And the leaders were talking to each other.
We were talking to each other, and we kept warning each other when we see situations. But there was security. Perere was covered by all journalists, and it's a big parish. So for me, Oscar, people can come here or can go. The social media is awash and say all they can, cry victim, to do this and that. But at the end of the day, if we go to areas to campaign, and then we work crowds, cause fights.
Who caused fights?
Cause fights.
Journalists.
And people, now you can hear. Why don't you listen to me? I've given you where I was. And I'm being specific. That if we have leaders, because most of the areas where there were problems, fights were begun by supporters. Then when there is a fight,
that's not right,
of supporters from one side or another, then security will rein in to normalize the situation. Then the work of a journalist is to cover the incident. So people become victims. I am not speaking for government. I'm not speaking for journalists. It's unfortunate that some, but like he has said, not only journalists were beaten. Many people have been beaten. But it's because of, I am not talking about what I saw in the campaign. Is what I'm talking about as someone who was there. But I want to give an example of where I was. And I'm saying my own observation is that if you go to an area and provide leadership, you are likely to end up the way we did. Because myself and my other colleagues were in Imperere. Because the way we provided leadership in that area, you have not had cries. So why don't we now unpack these areas? You will get where the problem was. When you incite people, there will be fights. People become victims. That's my own observation. I don't know if there's another parish that like was ours, but at least for me, who took 2 weeks to mobilize in Perere, with all these other people I've talked about, the combination of all people that were in Perere were in also other areas, hotspots. And I do not speak about targeted journalists and security because for me, I've been in Kawempe, but I've also been seeing this in social media and also in the cameras. Where I was, there was no incident. If there was anybody who was beaten in Imperere, you are here, you can tell me. So, and I cannot speak for where there were fights because my own observation, I went with the mind of engaging other leaders and saying, guys, let's not, because I found their language like Bigali. Do you know what a Chigali is? A Chigali is a mob of young, aggressive people who will come for you and lift you off your feet within a second if they have been signaled to do that. We pray that should not happen in Imperere. Then there are also there's a signal language they do, and within a second the crowd has surged for a fight. They say, hoo-hoo, Just that alone on Samu Chizindalo. So when we went, I told my colleagues who are from opposition, who had candidates, let's not do this, because we have our supporters ready for a fight, ready for a scuffle. Then on the side, there's a security here and journalists, because the media guy will always want to cover that type of scuffle and then build a story. It did not happen in Perere. If we had people like myself who are in all these other places, by beginning off by agreeing with colleagues, maybe would have saved areas that had this scuffle. That's all I can say about Kawempe North, because I was there, but the area I was in Perere, and that's what we did. Okay. And I've mentioned the other leaders who are there with us. Now you are just excited and urgent. What's the problem? Calm down.
No, Derek, hold on. We're going to listen to Abdul, then we'll come round again.
I cannot say your narrative, unfortunately. Me, I was in Perere, I was in Kawempe, and I cannot speak for where there were fights. Well. But I'm saying that I've given a general impression.
You have spoken for them.
I cannot speak for them because I haven't. Because I want them to come and tell their story. Why did we in Perere not have these fights?
Well, you've made
it's a leadership thing.
Abdul, you're on microphone now. Lydia says in her area there was peaceful and everything. So these other stories are theirs. She says it's a leadership issue. But why did Kawempe become so important to have all this brutality meted out on people, including journalists?
Really, I don't know. It doesn't make sense at all to me to see what went on there. It doesn't make sense. And it's being disingenuous of anybody to imagine there was a part of Kawempe which was okay. It's being disingenuous. Let me. You could have been the part of the problem, Lydia. Please.
No. I'm not going to allow you to pull me down. I was in Perere. I was deliberate and intentional.
But
I was, but you cannot say that when I'm here.
You're going to respond.
So what will you do?
I'm going to also. I'm also going to
respond,
defend myself.
Yes, let him finish his
Let me tell you, there is nothing to defend about Kawempe.
Who is defending Kawempe?
Will you allow him to speak?
The whole nation is bleeding, irrespective of actually the political persuasion. I know my colleagues within the NRM who are like, what is this going on? And really, I don't want to say it is purely about NRM, but some people within NRM who did that. So to me, we don't have to be apologists of what went on there. We don't have to deceive the nation, because you deceive the nation when the nation knows what has gone on. You don't look good. You certainly don't look good. You see, let us look, for us lawyers, we say the mischief rule. What was the intention behind? Somebody has to examine that, interrogate that. Why would anybody deploy people against journalists? That should be answered. And let me hazard an answer. It is because they did not want what was going on in Kawempe to be seen. That is all. You don't have to be an aeronautics scientist to know this. And that means there was something terrible which was going to happen. And the first thing you do, make sure you disable the world knowing what is going on there. You don't have to. You see, this country belongs to all of us. And now we have this. We have, this is my thinking. You've got NRM 1, you have NRM 2, and NRM 3. The NRM 1s are many of those people who were in 1986. Just ask any NRM 1 whether what went on in Kawempe was okay. Have a honest discussion with an NRM 1. They'll tell you, what is this? Actually, they are burying their heads in their hands in shame. Why? Because partly what sparked off the 1980 rebellion was the sparking point was rigging of the 1980 elections. And there are many people, younger people, who saw this and they say it is unacceptable. We cannot have a country where elections have been rigged and leaders are not purporting to be leaders of the people, whereas they don't have the mandate. And people went to the bush. We went through a 5-year war, which was costly both to the economy and to the population of this country. Now, we're going in this is not 19. What is it again?
20-something. 2025.
2025. And we see exactly what sparked off 1980 violence happening. And some people have guts to go on national television and say, by the way, it was okay. Only a little bit of victims. First of all, I have not seen any fight of supporters anywhere. I'm just hearing it for the first time. You guys, you tell me whether you've seen any. Please, it's not about Lydia. Let honor Lydia. I've not seen either on social media, in a government newspaper. I have not heard anybody talk about supporters fighting. There was not a single. I'm hearing of it for the first time that there was clashes of what? Of supporters. The people from Kawempe actually were so peaceful. So peaceful. The people who caused all this chaos were all outside the Kawempe. And they came in with a particular motive. And the first victim was the journalist. You journalists, let me tell you, nobody is going to allow you, Hakim Wampamba, to say you are covering us when we are torturing people and you are going to be protected. And you say, well, for us, we are going to tell the truth. You mean they want you to tell the truth? Of course they don't. A person who is strangling this lady, Agather, is talking about, what is her name again? Or Nabosa and so on. He wants you to tell the world that he's doing that. Really? That's what you are thinking? Please, let me tell you, when we are cooked, it is a matter of time. All of us will be in that pot being cooked. It doesn't matter whether you are Katuntu or even Lydia. All of us will be cooked. So the best thing is, let us not allow ourselves to be cooked. The best thing is, take for example, and I'm so emotional on this. Let me tell you why. One of the biggest asset of the national resistance movement has been a disciplined NRA, as we knew it then. NRA. You know, in 1987, let me tell you, people used to love NRA. And for those of us who are opposed to the NRA, we had the problems. Because you see, you couldn't fight NRA. It was a people's force. You tell me whether the forces that were in Kawempe were called, you can really logically call them a people's force. First of all, a people's force comes when it is masked. If you are going to do legitimate security, law and order in an area, it is not even an operation of terrorism, but purely a civic exercise, which is an election. And you say, I'm going to do this, but I don't want to be seen. Meaning, I don't want accountability. I don't want By the way, it's not even accounting to the population, but even accounting to the command. Because even your commanders would not know who is doing what. So you are there, you don't know each other. Because everybody is putting on a what? A mask. Really, to me, a country picks lessons. We have seen what, and I don't know whether in a book where I wouldn't want anything like happen in Kawempe. I'm not so sure whether Lydia would want anything which happened in Kawempe to happen in Mbale when she's competing in an election. It doesn't matter. Let me tell you why, Agatha. Do you think Nambi is happy with what went on? Never. Why? Nambi, and I'm really very sorry for Nambi.
She should have then.
No, please. You are assuming too much. She was actually also a victim. Because those people who were there were not under any of her control. Neither did she even solicit them to be there.
And she's going to think she lost her vote because of it.
Of course, partly. Partly her performance is because of the behavior of the security forces in Kawempe. Actually, NRM, in my view, should be like, do we need this? And I don't know whether from today anybody can say, look here, NRM benefited from what went on in Kawempe politically. Strategically, it was wrong. It was not well thought out. And really, whoever participated in that strategy is not a good friend of the NRM politically, because they did not get a single point out of what went on in Kawempe. They must go back to the drawing board, because the population, the genuine, honest population, is like, we don't want this. And nobody should justify it under any circumstances. This country does not deserve that. I was talking to a colleague of mine, I may not mention the name, but he's involved in tourism. One of the guys who have been trying to attract, people here to come, because tourism can really be one of the economic backbones of this country, because we have whatever it takes to make this country a number one tourist destination. We have whatever it takes. And let me tell you, all this nonsense in Kawempe was all over the world. All over the world. You cannot tell anybody anywhere, whether in New York or in China, that, by the way, there was a Kawempe which was very okay, things were smooth. Nobody can believe that. Yeah. And you see, when you see journalists this in hospital, and these are going either on the mainstream media, but also on social media, what do you expect the world to look at you? It's terrible. So I hope the country has picked its lessons. We need really to get serious and call everybody to order. I have this gutter feeling, my honest thinking, I don't think President Museveni is happy with what went on in Kawempe.
We don't know that because he's not holding anyone accountable.
I said what? I don't know. Maybe you know. But me, I think
that Agatha,
I have that gutter feeling that he's not happy.
Yeah. But Agatha, yes.
I wanted to pose this question, and it has been burning me for a long time. The Honorable Lydia is trying to drive the narrative that probably, because I think she has also justified the fact that she wasn't there, that probably we were just beaten as journalists, as victims, and because there were fights.
You are crying victims.
We are just crying victims. Me, I want Honorable to just give one incident of anywhere on any polling station where there was a fight. Yes, a fight of supporters, and the fight, when the security came in, they ended up beating journalists as well. Or just the Chigali, anywhere it happened on that day, on any of the 197 polling stations. Just one incident, if it ever happened.
Maybe let's look at this. Look at the polling station, Oscar, which were cancelled.
Yes, that's Angola.
After they have already counted the votes and the results are there, then people come
and they kick.
And first of all, they ask for the tally sheets. Tear them. Not only tearing them, they go ahead and destroy the ballot, or we call them the voting materials, the boxes, the what, and so on. And you tell me that was partly because who had won at that particular station, and why would anybody come and do exactly that? And you blame it on a journalist or even on a supporter. And the person doing it is actually in uniform. It is terrible. Yes. It is unacceptable. It is actually nauseating.
We are going to stop for a break, and then we'll have another round of discussion. I want to put to these journalists that they've propagated all this because they never name these people. If you started naming Wandera in 2021, maybe we would not be in this situation.
But we do name.
We named. We named.
Who did you name?
We named.
Who did you name? Only Hakim has mentioned.
No, that could only happen. But just like, you see, someone that is trying to do this is avoiding accountability, both to the command and to the people that they are with. Because first, there were people that did. You see, I see those UPDF uniforms. Some of them actually have names.
Even police.
This time round, the names were not on. Some of the people that were that engaged in an orgy of bloodletting and beating journalists up were not having names on their uniform. They were having masks. Others were clad in baklava, so you can't see anyone. I've heard the Internal Affairs Minister saying that it is wrong for anyone executing a public civic duty to hide their name and hide their identity. And now here we come to see the CDF of this country saying, well, those are UPDF people and they are doing a good job. Whether it is a joke or it isn't, it is certainly a bad joke and a despicable one at that, and no one should be able to laugh at it and say this is something that someone should run away with.
Let's stop for a break. Welcome back from the break. This is the Capital Gang. Lydia is in a hot spot, hot seat.
No. Nobody. I'm not going to allow anyone to put me in a hot spot because I do my work.
Let me put to you. When you don't recognize that there was violence in that election, you lose out a little bit. That's what people are saying.
They can say what they want. There is a difference, Oscar. If I had come here when I just watched the Kawempe elections in the comfort of my sitting room or in some other place, then I bring out of English and begin talking about violence. That's a different story. I'm giving my own narrative, and I've given it a qualification, and I've put the table to the leaders who were in those parishes. And you cannot remove my narration from my right. I have the right to say, if I was not in the Kawempe North, maybe my story would be different. And I would be saying what I saw on television, like many of you are. You've been angered because you saw the election through the TV. I've been able to zero to where I was and tell my story and also give an opinion that maybe if all leaders of parishes behaved like the way we did, maybe would have been able to salvage the situation. But many of you are running to blaming people. Do not blame me for what the security did, because that's not my work. You are pulling me to government. I'm not a government people. I'm a member of the NRM. I went. No, you are saying, don't tell us this. I have to tell you what I did. I went to Mperere, campaigned there, provided leadership in Mperere. People of Mperere voted. And in Mperere, we had journalists. We had security. We had voters. So if you want to ask me to talk about Mperere, the whole election, I do not have that competence. Why? Because for me, I was inside. What has come out is stories we are now picking, like from you, and you have to tell us your story because I was not there. I cannot tell a story of what was happening on the media. And Oscar, please tell the difference between our colleagues who are when you're on TV, you're able to have a big picture. Now I can listen to the narration. I'm telling you what I witnessed where I was in Mperere. And I have that right. Nobody is going to intimidate me here and put me there to own a bigger problem to which I'm not part of. I did not even follow because I was deep in Mperere.
I did not think Oscar asked us in the capacity.
Let Lydia finish first.
I'm giving my own narrative because me, I'm different. You could have watched the story from your social media. He watched his from a TV from abroad because he's always abroad. He watched his from the media house. I was in Mperere.
Okay.
And I'm putting the violence you're seeing, or the breaking of boxes, I'm saying the leaders. I'm not even blaming the voters. Lydia. Those of us that went to man.
Lydia,
parishes.
Let me give you
those parishes.
You're still on microphone.
Those parishes could have done it better because I see sometimes. Yes. Why was the Mperere a different case? I want you to say that in Mperere, Wampamba, you were beaten there.
Okay, we've accepted.
Let's unpack this campaign. And no, don't head up me because I know what to do. Don't head up me.
Lydia.
Do not head up me because you thought that I would come here and I'm pulled down. I do not support violence. Mm-hmm. There was no violence in Mperere. I do not support intimidation. There was no intimidation in Mperere. Why? Because the leaders I was with, the Namugas, we agreed to make sure that in Mperere we provide leadership. And that's where the issue is. If everybody did Mperere, maybe it would be better. And the stories now let me talk about the stories I've had outside the Mperere. For example, in Kawempe Mbogo. That's what I've heard. Now this is third party, and I'm not here to give a third party, but I can tell the story. In Kawempe Mbogo Primary School near the mosque, and that's where my candidate voted from. The results were cancelled, and in that place I think there are about 6 boxes. Results were cancelled. Who would be happy to see you enter Chale Center and where your candidate voted? It's not part of the results. Then there was another. So I was also there. This is what I've seen on the media. There was an issue. So we need to listen to why did it happen like that in Kawempe Primary School, where my candidate voted. She has no results of her own. Then in Angola, there's a place, Kaza Angola. There was also a scuffle in Kaza Angola. The boxes were, the results were cancelled. This election has almost like 40% of the results cancelled, and because of the scuffles, because of the fights, that I cannot speak to because I was not there. I can only speak for Mpedere.
You know, Lydia,
that's it.
I've been trying to squeeze in a question.
So I cannot come here and begin now lambasting people. I don't know what. I can't.
I'm trying to squeeze in a question because you are not in Gaza, you are not in Palestine, you could be somewhere. Then you could say, I have not seen any Israeli brutality because I am not there. That's what people are putting.
I've watched and listened because we had people deployed there. NRM had people deployed. They have submitted a report, actually. And the party is going to make a statement on Kawempe results. Fortunately, I'm not the spokesperson of the NRM party, but when the party releases that information, we'll digest and be able to share. But I'm giving, on this table, maybe except Wampamba, I do not know anybody else. They can tell their story. Where you were, what went wrong. I have told you where I was, what happened in Impedere, and I stand by it.
Agatha, we start with you. You know, we've not yet even.
So.
No, you will when I invite you to speak. So Agatha is on microphone.
So
Agatha, listen to this one. The Uganda Human Rights Commission condemns the violence, intimidation, and harassment witnessed during the Kawempe North by-election. For an election to be free, fair, and credible, it must be conducted in an environment that is secure, safe, and peaceful, enabling citizens to exercise their right to vote. And it goes on that they will investigate incidents and so on. This is Uganda Human Rights Commission. So I want us to conclude on this topic, if possible, beginning with you, Agatha.
I don't know.
Sorry, I beg your pardon? Is there
a possibility that will not conclude? You said very possible.
It is a high possibility that will not conclude.
So I don't know whether to envy Oscar's patience as a moderator or to feel that you're letting way too much misinformation and dancing on the graves, on the injuries of people in Kawempe pass by from what Lydia is saying. So Lydia, no, let me now speak. You have been speaking and saying things and I kept saying, can we, but what is Impedere? We are talking about Kawempe North by-election. Now, if you keep saying, and the first thing is that Oscar wasn't asking us.
Ladies, calm down and discuss properly. Both of you.
No one is gagging. I am just responding to what she said. And I'm calm, by the way. I have no problem with being calm. We deal with these things every day. The thing is that Oscar didn't ask us as in the capacity of where were you? We all, like he said, you cannot say that because we haven't been in Gaza. We have not seen what has happened in Gaza, or we shouldn't comment. If you keep insisting, Imperial, where I was, are you saying that there was no violence in Kawempe North by-election? Just because there was no violence in where you were, which I also don't believe. But she talks about leadership. We provided leadership, incitement. You had a victim here. When he was narrating what happened and how it started, there was nowhere where supporters started the fight anywhere. And that's why for me, when I started this Oscar, I said let's start with the nomination day. what happened on nomination day? What happened during the nomination of Narukola and what happened during the nomination of your candidate? What happened on the campaign day, the first campaign day? What happened on election day? The security operatives that came and kicked and tore voting materials, who incited them? How were they incited? So for me, I think that being at least honest and, whatever, not being insensitive to the pain of people that are nursing injuries for just doing their job or for just going to vote or to campaign for someone. That's one. The other thing is that I noted here some things to respond to. One is, I think Oscar asked a question of why the violence. First of all, the violence achieved some of what they wanted. You have a voter population of 200,000 people, but you have about 15% of that turning up to vote. And the low voter turnout, in many cases, works for an unpopular candidate. So that was achieved, that you didn't have so many people that want to brave that, the tankers that were there, as if it was a war zone, to go and vote. They thought it would work in their favor, but it didn't. And for me, the big problem is that a sham process, we end up with a candidate that was expected.
When the report comes out, they'll say, in 2021, what is the name of the deceased? Mohammed Sejirinya got 40,000, and now this one has gotten 18. You see there, it is about somewhere in the report.
Yeah, so one of those things happened, and the voter turnout in this country, even in the general elections, keeps going down. But the other big factor, the elephant in the room, that many of us don't want to talk about because we know what might happen, is that we have a CDF, a commander of the defense forces, who every day incites this violence. They are talking about incitement. For them, incitement is only when it comes from an opposition party, when it is even not. But you have a leader of the armed forces, of the army in this country, who every day goes on TV or on Twitter and says, I will behead, I will hang. But now, even added, he first said, after they beat up those girls that for me I saw and felt how I felt, he said, he wrote in Runyankore, but translating it would mean, we have not even started beating. Yes, I am. We have not even started beating these fools. When we start, they will cry. You would expect a leader to come and say, we do not agree with what happened yesterday, but this is what he said. The next day, he took it a notch higher and said, any police officer who doesn't beat up this noob, whatever, will be sent home. Whatever. So you have this leader who people will know, one, that there will be no consequences for our actions, because the boss, because, well, he is more than that in this country. He's become now an untouchable person. And it goes back to what I was saying, Abdu, that for me, I actually know that Museveni is okay with what's happening. Because if he was not, that CDF would not still be holding office right now. Because if you want to hold someone accountable, start from there. The hooded people, they have been hooded all through from that first day of the campaigns. There was this woman, the female soldier, that came and started pulling them. There was about to be a fight of armed forces. When they asked why they are hooded, and the state minister for internal affairs said they shouldn't be, it's not acceptable that security officers that are out there to keep security cover themselves. The CDF came back and said, it is okay. These are our people. It is okay. So let's start with that. If you say why the violence, is that you have a CDF with a huge ego.
Actually, his spokesman said that one has no work.
What has no work?
The minister.
Or both now.
Yeah.
So all this is happening, and we don't want to talk about the cause. Because I'm not saying that violence in elections has started now, but it is worse now, and it will get worse. This was, I think, to warn us about what would happen in the general election that is coming up not long from now. I think we should all be worried.
Derek, you've been itching to speak, so is your time.
There are two things I want to respond to. I am very much forced to be convinced. I'm forcing myself to be convinced that maybe Lydia wasn't in Pereru.
She was
because the first incident of beating a journalist happened in Imperere.
Yeah.
The first incident in the morning, and that was Kanare Mugume, was beaten in Imperere. So
on the election day.
On the election day in the morning, where
Lydia was.
Honorable Lydia is saying she was. And if she was there, probably she was seated in some small house, and she wasn't even observing what was happening outside. So it was very peaceful where she was seated. Where she was seated, it was very peaceful. She's like saying, now they have cut off my hand, but I'm okay. The head is okay. The legs are fine. The kidney is fine. That's what Honorable Lydia is trying to say. And she's sounding very, for lack of a better word, very shabby tonight, this morning.
Because speak what you want to hear.
Because not what we want to hear. What
I've
happened.
not come to defend journalists here. I came to speak about elections. In Imperere, there was no incident.
I've given you an incident.
Show me. You are lying. Even your face shows you are lying, of course. It's because I've beaten your hands down. You want us to come here.
Hands down,
yes, you want us to come here and begin lamenting.
I have given you an incident in Imperere.
I will not do that.
I have given you an incident in Imperere.
You respond.
Yes. I've given you an incident in Imperere.
I stopped him from interrupting you.
I know what to do.
Lydia, I stopped him from interrupting you.
There was no incident.
You
the one I've given you was in Imperere.
That I'm speaking an opinion against 6 people here who just watch TV.
That's why I gave you a lot of time.
You watch TV and social media, and then you begin lamenting. Allow us to tell you the reality on the ground.
That is not
the violence that was there was.
That is not reality.
If our own candidate in an area where there are 6 ballot boxes were destroyed, and that's under investigation, do you think we are happy that the stronghold of our candidate, we have no results to talk about?
So who destroyed them?
Do we know? I was not there. Let's tell our listeners what they need to hear. I was in Imperere. The results of Imperere are on record.
Do you have any other subject to discuss?
The results of Imperere are on record.
We are degenerating.
But for Kawempe and Bogo, we don't have results to speak for our candidate. Where it's our stronghold.
I've been looking at you like this. All
you
this.
can look the way you are, because from the beginning you thought that you can intimidate me.
Oscar,
the last one.
As NRM, we are not happy with the results. But when we speak, you will think it's because the results show that we didn't lose. We had a very competitive candidate, and I'm sure some of you are surprised that we got the results. And yet, her stronghold was not. It was.
By the way, we are surprised that she got 8,000.
She was a very good candidate.
We expected her to get much than that.
Lydia.
Her results in her stronghold, Mbogo, Kawempe and Mbogo, are not on record. You think we can be happy with that?
So the other thing,
over 40% of the results are cancelled.
Lydia, you are now
you
showing.
Wanted me to talk.
You are showing indiscipline.
No,
I told you.
You are dealing with us on discipline, but you don't watch TV.
No,
I told you.
Who is watching TV?
Lydia,
I'm a journalist. I
told you you are going to speak again.
I was in Kawempe.
Yeah, the other one. I wanted to respond to the question you
Derek
said.
Is going to speak. Then Hakim, then Lydia.
We never named these people. In 2021, I named the person who commanded the beating of NUP candidates at nomination center, and that was the DPC of Kasangati at the time, Agume. And there was so many reports about the person, but the following day when we went to the field, we realized that all officers had ripped off their identification and their names, and that remained the same up to the end of the entire election. So all officers had removed their name tags, and it's the same, and they have learned the same tactic, that whenever they are going to to operate for operations in any election. None of them carries their tags, and it will always be hard for us to identify them.
Akim.
So I must admit, and this with a lot of respect and a lot of humility, it really looks ugly on you, Lydia, to say such things really never happened. I must admit, it really takes a lot of patience to listen to you with calmness. It really takes a lot. So with all the humility, I will tell you that Canary covered candidate Nambi for NBS television, and he was the very first person to receive the intimidation from the hooded security officers. I think for me, I'm going to just address something like 3. Police really looked helpless. I know for a fact that the agency that should really man these elections is police. The argument that we've always had is that police, the JAT, SFC, and other security operatives are there on invitation by police. Then it begs question, because I saw DPC Nanoka really helpless and trying to restrain the people from unleashing terror onto the journalists and the election and the EC staff. So it really begs question as to whether it is really true that police is inviting all the other security operatives because maybe they lack the capacity to handle the violence in case there is any. I want to admit that there was none that I saw with my own eyes, neither the journalists that I was with. So I saw the Internal Affairs Minister the other time say that the journalist that was beaten, Miracle of Top TV, was treated. I want to think that it is not just enough that you treat the victims of this terror from the security personnel. I want to believe that there is a little more that you can do than just treat the victims. And we also need to embolden the role of the military in our politics as a country. We really need to be told that, hey, Ugandans, this is what is headed for you. This is what is going to happen to you, and we can decide from there whether we need the elections in a free and democratic society and the democratic bedrock that we possess, or that we tend to advertise ourselves for being. And then I also want to say that I want to address the Shannon fader that I've seen around social media, people trying to celebrate the beating of journalists from a certain media house. I really want to believe that social media is not a real place until you find the victim of the trolling that you get to say on social media. Isano Francis was beaten, and I've seen very many people trolling him and saying, "You've seen? Now they've come for you." It really looks ugly. I want to believe that for such people, they just need the grace of God, first to save themselves from the danger that they are for celebrating beating of a person, and then I can only pray for God to send them grace so it can sanitize and immunize them against that myopia, because very soon it will be down for them. So I'm not down for such maladroitness. The way forward for the media industry in Uganda, I've had conversations about the blackout of security, and we say we are not going to cover them. I want to say that the African Center for Media Excellence has tried to do some little research around actually heavy research on the coverage of security and all other public affairs subjects. You will see that it really ranks low. So we've already not been covering so much that happens with security. So blacking out on them, I want to say, would play to their own advantage, because the very reason as to why we are beaten, not to show the truth, is because they do not want us there. So us blacking out on security would mean that we have just played their script. So I want to believe that we can begin from this point to have meaningful conversations and sustainable solutions for how we can really find the relationship between the media and security plus all the other citizens really concretized. So we really need to discuss at a much granular level. We need to see the media executives, the media owners really getting on board with us, the people that are sent out to the field, because I certainly do not leave home to come and be beaten. I come to execute a job. So we really really need to find a solution to this. Forget the conversation Lydia has given you about the objectivity and the good things that happened in Perere as if it is the only yardstick for what happened in the entire Kawempe. Forget that conversation. We are now having a meaningful conversation about our country. I do not want to bequeath this sort of country to my son or my grandson for that matter. I do not want and I do not envision Hakim to come to wake up and come and be beaten and someone walks away scot-free with no accountability. After all, they did not have a name, they were clad in a baklava. I want someone to take full accountability of their actions, and maybe at this particular point the head of state needs to come out and tell us whether he is really in charge, because if he is really in charge, who are these people? If he is really in charge, why are people being beaten with reckless abandon and walking, and people that beat them walk away scot-free? Why and for how long are we going to continue sanitizing the democratic processes with blood of innocent Ugandans? Do we really need these electoral processes to be this bloody? We spent a lot of money. What is the value for money for the amount that was spent on the Kawempe North by-election? And this is taxpayers' money. How do we account for that? Lydia, while we sit in the studio and get to discuss Mperere among the 197 other voting areas, are we really giving a taxpayer like full value for the money that they pay? Okay. So I think we don't need to discuss need to discuss trivialities on such a show. And I thought that from my my senior should be getting the rules of engagement at this particular point, but sad that I've not received so. I think we should really discuss the greater things for the people. The people that subsidize
Elizabeth
us with the
in Kampala
taxpayers.
says, first they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Elizabeth in Kampala, you know that famous one, the Nimola one.
Yes.
Then they came for the trade unions, and then they came for the Jews, then they came for me. And no, not me. We're going to stop for a break, and we'll come back, beginning with Lydia, and then Abdul. We must conclude this topic because surely we have not even talked about the candidates. Lydia will come first, then Abdul. Apologies for that bit of delay because we did shout at each other in the break. But let's see if we can conclude. Abdul, I said if possible.
I know.
Lydia, you're on microphone.
When you mentioned the Kawempe, I chose to give my opinion twofold. As a person who was there, but also I gave a general opinion of what I had where I was not. You see, those are two different things. And I have my own facts and reality and opinion that you cannot take away from. I've given you the people who are with me in Kawempe, in Mperere, but Mperere is part of Kawempe. So those of you who watched Kawempe and you don't know where the locations where people are being fought, you have a right to say what you want. So you have a right to blame generally. But for me, I'm specific because I was there. And I've told you the layers of the people that were in this election. There were leaders, political party leaders in this election. There was the media in this election. There was security in this election. But most important, the 200,000 registered voters and the community of Kawempe. So what do I want to say? What I saw in Mperere had the contribution of the political party leaders and other leaders who were there, the media that was there, the security. Mperere was, if you want me to say, was peaceful as far as I'm concerned, and it is a part of Kawempe. And finally, the results were posted. If you go to the election table of Kawempe, you find there Mperere. Now, I'm talking about two areas where I was not. Two areas where I was not, they have posted records of violence. I condemn violence. I do not support violence, but my point, you said what should be done. I said leaders have a contribution to make. Why? Because for us, we made a contribution in Mperere. If they were same with the Kawempe and Bogo, maybe we could have preempted and improved the situation. That's what I'm saying. So I'm different from my other colleagues. For me, I was there. I've given an account of where I was. But generally speaking, I've also picked reports from social media, from the report of the NRM. The NRM, as a party, they will be making a press briefing or reporting as a position of the party. We are not happy about the results. Why? Because over 40% of the results were cancelled. Why? There was violence at the boxes at the time of counting or the time of declaration. By who? That is a matter for investigation.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
because I was not there, I've just seen it, but in Pedere, the results are there. Where I was. So if for you to say that I should not speak about Umpedere, it's also a lie. It is to tell a lie. Also to live in denial. Finally, I was with the Kanale Mugume. I was not deployed in Kawempe Mbogo. The only assignment I had in Kawempe Mbogo was prepare the candidate to go and vote as a leader of the Women's League. And I was with the Canary. The moment we finished
social
that,
media is killing you.
they can have their day. You're not going to block truth and opinions because social media. That's their day. They can blow the air with.
Yeah.
But I've told you what I saw. We do not. I personally do not support violence. I do not support intimidation. If I say I do not support that, promoting. You don't give me the language. I'm an expert in my own right. I know English. If I say I do not support, what does that mean?
It doesn't mean you.
But you don't gag me.
Yeah.
But you don't gag me, Wampamba. I do not support violence.
Abdul,
No, he's intimidating me.
on.
When he was speaking, I was not talking. I was listening to him.
Thank you.
So
Abdul,
I do
microphone.
not, Oscar,
Thank
I do
you.
not support violence.
Yeah.
I do not support intimidation that, like we saw in Kawempe in some areas. We do not support gagging people. You do not force us to say what you want to hear. Because I don't support violence. I do not. And leaders who incite violence. Because that's what there was incitement was there. Because if you go and vote and go away, why should there be a scuffle? If people are counting votes, if people are
Agather,
counting votes,
your microphone is
if people
off.
are counting votes, why should you go and now break the boxes and dismantle? In Kawempe Mbogo, we had an upper hand, and that's where our candidate voted. You're journalists. Why don't you mention them? You know them. At least you know that I don't. You know that I don't.
Thank you, Lydia. Abdul on microphone.
If there is a violence, the NRM party is not happy that some areas had that violence and that we lost out 40%. Results were cancelled. But that's not for me to say because I was not first person there. In my area where I was, everything was okay. And the Kanare Mugume was not in Kawempe, in Pedere. He was not hassled. I met him in Imbogo, and the coverage where he was, there was no problem. I stand by it.
Abdul, moving away from all that so that we can finish this topic. NUP was accused of putting up a candidate, an unexpected candidate. I think they were going to have, is it Mr. Ruswa, who was expected to stand for NUP, but they gave a flag to Narukola. NRM, again, it was expected it would be another lady who they thought, or we had on the show here, someone claimed, what was it? Hanifa Karadi. They thought maybe she'd get the flag. Then there was also an Obote on the ticket.
How do you think?
That one is your brother. What was the name? Maitum. Engena Maitum. Yeah. Then your old party, FDC, I don't know.
Aganaga.
Aganaga. So, and yet the candidate who they claimed had been imposed eventually won. So, what are the dynamics? What does that tell you about 2026?
Okay, let's look at the winning party, the National Unity Platform. You see, in 2021, they really had so many people coming up, and the sort of people who eventually got their tickets were really people like Sejirinya and many others. Some of them are my colleagues in Parliament, so I'm careful with the words I'm going to use, but I'm sure you've already got the message. So, he is not around. And, so, now they are trying to reinvent themselves. That if you are in Parliament, what sort of people do you need there? I need people who can hold up an argument and so on, and debates and so on, so that there is a face of not a Sejirinya, but some other person. Because one, the National Unity Platform now has sort of anchored to some extent. It is a party, a little bit functional and so on. It's been the official opposition party for 5 years. So the sort of candidates who are going to be fielded this time may not necessarily be the caliber of those who were fielded in 2021. And that's, in my own view, that is the reason they had to eventually zero on Nalcola. But I can tell you, even if they had picked Nsereko, he would certainly have won.
Anyone.
There is no doubt about. And you see, if you lie yourself to a reality, you don't look good, really. You certainly don't look good. Conversation was some other day. Now it came to the National Resistance Movement. One, in my view, they brought in another candidate. The reason why they brought in this candidate, there were two. One, they wanted, because this is Kawempe, they wanted a Muganda. Kalade, Hanifa was actually not a Muganda, but they also wanted a Muslim, because Kawempe being what it is. Then the advantage of Nambi, Hanifa Kalade actually is not a Muganda. She's a Muslim, yes, but she also competed sometime in Mbarara or somewhere like some other constituency. So now they wanted somebody who had competed before, and Nambi being a Muganda Muslim, but also she had that's another asset which came. Also she had competed for woman MP. And in a woman MP,
so she had footprints there.
And in Kawempe, she did perform very, very badly. She didn't win, but Kawempe, she did a little bit better. And anybody who thinks NRM should have won that constituency, I think he's lying to himself. Actually, winning Kampala, the NRM should reinvent itself within Kampala to gain back that confidence of the people of Kampala. The strategy should certainly be different, because as we talk now, so don't pull us down. NRM is already down in Kampala. It must re-strategize. The worst strategy you can do is what you did in Kawempe. That is the worst.
Deployment.
Because I don't think NRM as a party got a credit or got even a single vote more in Kawempe. And don't even look at what went on at the last minute. That is the election day. This thing started from the day of nomination and throughout the campaign process. There was that precursor incident also which affected the National Unity Platform party. It also had a count on what went on there. So to me, if NRM was really wanting to get back to Kampala, it should not, first of all, use the very people it has used in Kawempe. That is a vote loser. A vote loser. All those guys really did harm to the NRM party than good. Then you have to come to my former party, the Forum for Democratic Change. Oh, God. I don't want to say anything really. Sometimes after divorce, you let things lie.
And your former party, UPC?
And my former party, UPC, didn't failed.
They fielded the candidate.
Did they?
Yes.
But UPC didn't fail.
Oh.
Then
the candidate was withdrawn.
Then my brother, Engena. Let me tell you the connection between our family, the Bote family, and Kawempe. If you are going to Kawempe, there is a house on your right. A very old house, but of those people, the Baganda says Semaka, with the tiles and so on. That is Mr. Kalule's house. And Kalule is the mother of Miria. Sorry, the father of Engena's mother. You get it? So Engena was coming home and so on. But the politics has really changed so much. So it wasn't that Engena came out of nowhere. It was about a family connection and so on. And he's also trying to do politics of his own
Yeah.
First of all, to get out of the shadows of his brother, but also to say this is not about UPC, it's also about myself, like all children of political actors. So, congratulations to my brother. I don't know whether he got 20 votes. So,
I think 22.
22. Oh, that was good of him. And you Agather, stop laughing. My congratulations,
Oscar, I want
the dynamics of it.
Yeah.
Don't talk about previous topic.
No.
We stick with this one now.
So the dynamics were always going to be a little very unfair or very difficult for the NRM. When you look at Kawempe as in Kawempe itself, the entire Kawempe, in my view, in Kampala, that is the area that has the biggest number of foot soldiers of NUP, the biggest number. And in fact, during many elections, you would hear them calling Kawempe a republic. They even come out to say Kawempe Republic is a republic on its own, as they have always mentioned.
There was another who had said he was the president of Kawempe.
Yes,
the president of Kawempe.
Yes, they even have a president in Kawempe. So during the infamous abductions that have been going on and that started in 2020, Kawempe was so much affected because of the many NUP supporters who come from there. And I think one of the biggest and toughest questions that was cast to the NRM campaigning agents and candidates in Kawempe was the fact that some of their people up to now are still missing.
The listeners really send information. The man was Kawempe Tala,
yes,
father-in-law of Obote.
Yes.
So I think one of the toughest questions...
No, actually, it was not Setala. Kawempe Setala was the local government minister during Obote too, and is not that particular one.
Okay.
The other one is Mr. Kaule. I'll get the other name, but not Kawempe Setala.
So I think one of the toughest questions that the leaders grappled with during that campaign was asking for the missing people in Kawempe. And for me, I feel it did them a very huge blow when you don't have answers to some of those questions. Out of the missing 18 who have never surfaced up to today, I think more than 5 of them come from Kawempe. And even...
I thought the question was about candidates.
No, the question was, you are going to these electorates whose people are not around and you're telling them to vote for you. And they are asking you the question, where are our people? If we must vote for you, then avail to us our people that are missing, then we can give you votes.
So you're saying that was a factor as well?
It was a very huge factor for the NRM to go over. And also many of what the Honorable has spoken about is very, very true.
Hakim, NRM imposed a candidate who probably, as Abdu says, had a footprint. NUP imposed a candidate, and it was clear that the candidate would win, even though he had been imposed.
Even if they had put the jerry can.
I mean, I agree totally. I agree totally. But maybe
agree
just
with what?
I agree totally with the fact that one, the NRM knew it was fighting a losing battle. This is a stronghold of the opposition. You want to pick so much from the legacy of the fallen legislator who died, putting it plainly, at the hands of the very state that made an attempt to give him or send him off honorably. So that is the first ground. So it fell under the heavy weight of the excesses of the state that had led to their beloved Segirinya to go down the drain. The NUP has over time realized that it is now, and I think it is something that they are going to continue with. Now it has become a party of age that it is going to so much look into the intellect and a broader understanding of whoever they want to give their card. That is why they subjected them to that political process, which was an internal debate and that internal vetting. I think for all the other parties, they knew, and I think the NUP reading from what the FDC was, for a party to come up with that huge, I think these are parties that are formed out of protest or people having very grave concerns. So the FDC ran its race for about 2 or 3 election cycles. All right. So I think the trend is going to be the same for the NUP particularly, and more so Buganda and Central Region. So you want to believe that it is going to remain that way, at least for the near foreseeable 2 or 3 election cycles to come. And as for the particular candidates that were fielded by all the other by the Forum for Democratic Change, you want to say that this is someone that was perhaps picking off the steam of the other artists that have perhaps attempted at leadership roles in this particular country, beginning from as early as 2000, the Charles James Senkobuge Siasas of this world, then the Pade Salivitama that also attempted at one particular point, and the plethora of many others that are some still in Parliament. I want to believe that he read off that and said maybe the arts industry should now shoot one of its own to the maximum body politic. But largely, I don't think the Kawempe North by-election was largely determined by the charisma or the leadership abilities of the candidate. I think it was largely because of the stronghold that it is for the NUP and the heavy mobilization skills of the NUP in Kawempe.
Agatha, we'll have Lydia speaking last. The candidates, do you agree that it was all very visible? Whoever NUP had put there would win?
I think so for a few reasons. So Kawempe was a seat was occupied by an NUP MP, right? He was taken to jail for reasons we've never known up to now, because for 2 years they never persecuted him. Prosecuted him. They never prosecuted his case. So in the 2 years he was in jail, he was unwell all through. He showed pictures of a rotting body. People pleaded for him to get to get bail and get treatment, and it seems by the time he was released, it was too late and he died. So people still remembered that our candidate, our MP here, died probably because of this government. There was already that anger. Then there's a point of it being an opposition stronghold. Then now you come to the violence, like we said, that has started, has been seen all through. And it's the other reason I disagree that the NRM candidate is innocent in all this. She was shown giving out money. She saw the violence. She was with Baram, the Minister of State for... Yes. So she saw the violence that was happening. She sort of was with it, was with them that were doing all this. If she was innocent, she would probably have said, I'm not going to be part of this, because you wouldn't want blood on your hands for a seat of 9 months. I kept asking, what is it about this seat? The mandate is just 9 months before we get to another election. Why should people die because of that? Why should people be beaten?
Less, but the one who gets a mandate now, most likely automatically will have the next election.
Okay, so to conclude is that all that is also to go. And when we talk about why the violence, why the what, is we have institutions that are dead, don't do anything. You have an electoral commission that has the mandate under Article 60, 61 and 62 to preside over a free and fair election. They saw all this, they kept quiet. There were allegations of ballot stuffing even a day earlier. They kept quiet. There was violence from the beginning. They kept quiet. And now that's how you see this happening, that for people it was a protest vote. You can do whatever you want, but we won't vote for your candidate. I had never heard of Narukola before he came into the news. Or
before he was abducted.
No, was he? I didn't even know. I didn't know him.
There are many people you don't know.
Yeah, I didn't know him. And for me, I'm
I
now
hope
saying
you are not saying you are the yardstick of being.
no. I'm
for somebody
I'm
to be
speaking
with that,
for
then
myself.
It has to be you to know.
No, Abdu. I'm speaking to say that for me to see that someone I didn't know, I looked forward to them winning, just
okay.
because let this violence. Let it show them that violence will not be the answer, or will not give them the answers they want. I remember thinking I want to hear the news before I sleep, even with the dilly-dallying to announce the winner. And for me, that was, it has reached this point of anyone but NRM. Even if I don't know him, if I don't agree with him, but not this bloody, violent, brutal regime that is being very proud of that to just show might. Yes.
Lydia, speaking last on choice of candidates by the parties, Abdu has said that your candidate had a footprint in the area, having campaigned for woman MP. NUP had initially been accused of imposing a candidate, but they still won. And then there are others. But his former party, the FDC, I don't know, maybe it has lessons to take.
Really, the choice of candidates is a preserve of political parties, and I think we should give it to them. Since 2005 until now, political parties are still young. They are really struggling to do their best. But also, largely, communities still vote more individuals than maybe political parties. It's a mix of things. Because for the NRM, we normally use party primaries. We have a call of interest, people express themselves, then we have primaries. But because we had a person who had contested, we had a flag bearer for Kawempe North in 2021 called Mr. Kasenge. But he declined to contest because he has another assignment he's working on. He's busy elsewhere. So he brought back the flag. The constitution of the NRM says if you have the flag, like I do for Mbale Woman Member of Parliament, Mbale City, I'm the leader of the Mbale State until the end of the term for the NRM. So that's what the constitution says. But if there was a by-election, I then become the flag bearer. It's automatic that I become the flag bearer. So for this case, Mr. Kasenge was ideally supposed to be the automatic flag bearer, but he declined because he said he was already committed elsewhere. So he brought back the flag to the party headquarters. So the next of kin, if I may use that word, was the Farida, because now Farida had been the flag bearer for Kampala City. Yeah? And Kawempe North is under Kampala. So consultations now were made around Farida because she also holds the flag for the city, now away from Kasenge. So the consultations ended up with Farida Nambi to become our flag bearer, because in any case she's the flag bearer for woman member of parliament for Kampala City. And also all our eyes and efforts run to Farida, because she has been the flag bearer for Kampala City together with the Kasenge. So I think for us as a party, that's what we did about the flag bearer. And she has a chance. I mean, if she continues the way she did this by-election, she still has, even in the women in the parliamentary election, she did very well. She got 30,000 votes from Kawempe, and the dynamics are known there. So I think she can pick it on from there, and she has a future there. So, but for other, you said we support violence. So if our party has rejected, now are you happy or are you not happy? Because when I was speaking here, you are saying we were. Now if we reject because of violence, now are you happy or not happy? Because I've been trying to explain, you are demonizing me. Now that you've heard the report, now are you going to twist your story? God is good. That has happened when I'm still on Capital Gang. I've been explaining myself. Now you are happy because we condemn violence, and I kept now. Yes, but Imperere is part of Kawempe, and I've been telling you we condemn violence. I didn't want to listen to me. Now you vindicate me before I leave the gang. Anyway, now you are caught into your own fights. You are here ganging me. Now it has come out that we've rejected because of violence. Now what do you have to say?
Thank you.
Now you see.
The listeners
Please vindicate me on this one. I'm leaving the gang happy.
Thank
but
you,
let me
Cafe.
finish this. For other political parties, whichever the candidate they chose, that was their best foot. We have Farida Nabi. She was our flag bearer, and she still stands.
Thank you, Abdul. A good turn deserves another. I also got you a tie, but I left it in the car. It has a lighter shade of blue. It's not the dark blue because of reasons you may wish. But if you notice, I'm also wearing uniform. It's a Taiba shirt uniform because Taiba has a digital exposition today. Children are creating medical aids and learning aids. So I'll share their productions. We also have a Taiba-sponsored badminton tournament at Lugogo. If you have a time, please pass by. And it's important to thank Star Cafe. Everyone, apart from Abdul, has not had anything because of Ramadan. We wish you good Ramadan.
She came, she was really...
She was fired up.
In some mood. And she didn't even take water.
She had no water,
now
nothing.
You can take water.
She was with Imperial. Thank you so much, listeners. Continue following us on our social media platforms. I am Oscar Semoyamsoke, and I shall see you next week.